Parasite. From the beginning of the game to that very dark and incomprehensible ending, Scorn raises a lot of questions, the answers to which it never gives. Many of these questions from this macabre tale of a forgotten civilization and parasitic organisms are crafted for free interpretation by the player, and the ending itself does not bring the expected satisfaction and leaves incomprehensible feelings. However, that doesn't mean we can't try to figure out one of the biggest mysteries in the game. Despite the fact that the game does not have the usual narrative, there are many clues from which we can still push off. Let's try to figure this out. Lots of spoilers ahead, so beware if you haven't played it yet. The ending in Scorn is perhaps the most shocking moment, but there are a few hints in the game that help suggest what might have happened in the ending. Let's figure it out. One of those same questions during the playthrough is who or what kind of parasitic game grabbed our backs during the second act. Merging with the protagonist and trying to take over his body, this creature becomes one of the key elements of the passage, taking away your already small HP reserves and killing you throughout the entire exploration of the game. So what are you? Flashback moment. Screenshot from the article, but you can pay attention to the fact that the hand is straight human, without any changes inherent in the game world. What could that mean? Well, everything points to this being the character we played in Act 1. Although we are not directly told about it, with due attention it is obvious that the character who picks in the mines in the first act and the character who wakes up in the desert in the second is not the same. After we charged some structure of organic origin with 3 batteries in the first act, something goes wrong. The last battery does not stand up and the player is flooded with goo, and the hero's hands, probably like the hero himself, begin to become covered with tentacle-like growths, which also induces at the thought of turning him into that same parasite. Firstly, when this parasite appears for the first time crawling along the ventilations, you can pay attention that in the tail it just holds the same weapon that also plays the role of a key in some places, and as a result, we get at the moment when the parasite merges with us for the first time. If this is not enough, then in the 5th act we are given the opportunity to disconnect with it using a special device, which we control according to the same principle as we switched the rail arrows at the very beginning, i.e. through an external camera, which gives us the opportunity to see what's with our back after 30. The face of the parasite is very similar to the same face from the main menu, including the presence of teeth, and as we remember, the beginning of the game from the main menu smoothly turns into the awakening of this particular character, for which we then drive the entire first act. What's with the city? I already had a video with an analysis of the plot and the ending of the game. Look at the hint if you are interested in a complete analysis. In short, all these biomechanical labyrinths with bizarre architecture, parasitic organisms, and stuff like that clearly do not create the feeling of a friendly place where you are always welcome. It's hard to imagine that someone breaks in there on straight legs with the words "great place, perhaps I'll buy an apartment here next to that pile of meat." The reason for this is probably that some time ago, things were very different. While we don't encounter humanoid characters throughout the game that aren't trying to kill us, we do see echoes of a gigantic civilization everywhere. Civilizations of biomechanics and organic interfaces. It seems that the whole city has been hit by either a virus or some other kind of plague that caused mutations in organisms and biomass growths of all shapes and sizes appearing everywhere. What is the ritual at the end? At the beginning of the 5th act, the protagonist finally gets to the surface, having reached a certain palace, which seems to be far from all the problems that we had to face earlier, but this place is no less sinister. Entering the palace, we will see a lot of crucified bodies, as well as an eerie system of neurons to which they are connected. In principle, at this stage, this is the least of which you can worry about, because ahead of us are capsules with embryos, whose nature is also difficult to explain, robotic bodies that are controlled by these embryos, and in addition 2 more pregnant bodies, whose gender apparently clearly not female, but into which the player will eventually transfer their consciousness. Apparently, the palace just hurts the fundamental answers about the goals pursued by RGG. After filling 2 capsules with the blood of the fetuses I wrote about above, awakening 2 pregnant bodies with the help of these capsules and separating himself from the parasite, the hero returns to the central hall of the palace to give himself under the knife of a robotic humanoid machine, to be crucified and connected to a common network of such same poor fellows whom we saw earlier. As soon as we are connected, the GGS are given the opportunity to see through the eyes of 2 pregnant creatures with the ability to switch between them to open the door leading to the path to the unknown. And what are we to do with this information? What can this tell about the civilization that existed here? Well, actually, not enough, but better ground for conclusions about what happened here before our arrival than we will not find in this chapter. The crucified bodies in the central hall, in general, are very similar to our GG and apparently pursued the same goals, connected to the network of neurons, transferred their consciousness and probably successfully left this place. Obviously, the idea was to create better versions of their bodies, and perhaps attempts to return the body's lost abilities, for example, to reproduction. In any case, GG transfers his consciousness into pregnant bodies, which is interesting in both. Does this have any plot meaning or is it done simply for a puzzle with the division of tasks, is also a question. So what is the point of all this? A plan for the exodus of civilization, or did they simply decide to leave for the new world through the alleged portal and leave their home to rot? Until the end, of course, the answer is not clear, but GG obviously had some kind of plan and he followed it, exactly until the moment his plan failed. Again, returning to the already connected bodies, we can conclude that those who came before us and did all the same actions with the neural network clearly fulfilled their plan. Rebirth theme. Before we try to put all this stuff together, it's worth noting that the metaphorical theme of rebirth runs throughout the game's plot. Remember, even the moment when the first GG was absorbed by an unknown substance, we were immediately switched to the main GG, which was born from a cocoon or egg and pulls out the umbilical cord, which can very clearly refer to the above topic. Then there was a puzzle in Act 1 where we rolled a helpless creature that we basically helped to be born by hatching it from an egg. With a stretch, of course, but this can also be considered. The plot with the parasite can also mean some kind of rebirth. He clings to us and throughout the game is increasingly trying to take over our body, or penetrate it, thereby trying to be reborn through our GG. Later, getting into the palace and separating the parasite, the GG himself is reborn into those 2 pregnant creatures. However, as mentioned above, the hero's plans were not destined to happen, because in the end the parasite caught up with him and devoured him, and thus the GG is reborn into something new, albeit not of his own free will. In general, rebirth seems to be one of the key ideas in the game, given how Scorn revolves around the cycle of life, death, and the rebirth of the old into something new. And what does it all mean? Well, in the plot, if I may say so, there are still a lot of gaps that probably cannot be filled with absolute certainty of their authenticity. As a result, we have 2 GGS with a common original goal, namely, to cross the desert, get into the palace and perform something like a rite of exaltation or salvation.